Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's special DICE Grand Rounds in celebration of Native American Heritage Month. Before presenting our guests today, I want to remind all that today's presentation is in a webinar form. You will be able to see the panel, but we will not be able to see you. The chat box is blocked to be utilized by the panel exclusively. However, we hope that you will write all questions in the Q&A box. Caroline Nestro and myself will be looking out for questions in the box and then presenting them to our speaker at the end of the presentation. Towards the end of the session, we will post a CME link for all of those who wish to obtain CME credit for attending this webinar. If you registered ahead of time, a link will also be sent to your email address. I want to point out to all who noticed the land acknowledgement at the beginning of this event. DICE has made a conscious decision to put a land acknowledgement at the beginning of our rounds after much discussion and collaboration with others at the university who themselves have been in discussions with members of the Haudenosaunee Nation. We at DICE acknowledge that such land acknowledgement statements are meaningless without actions to back them up. Actions that should honor and attempt to atone for some of the harm caused. We hope that today's very important presentation will help inspire all to learn more about Native Americans, their culture, the treaties that affected their lives, their languages, and our own relationships with our neighbors. We also hope that it will inspire you all to take action and to support local indigenous communities in our area, especially maybe a trip to Ganondagan, which is just really a few minutes away from the city. Without any further delay, I would like to present to you Dalton Labarge, who will be first delivering the Thanksgiving address or Ohandu Gali Wadikwa. In turn, he will present our panelists. Losana Say, Dalton Labarge comes from the Akwesasne Mohawk Nation, the Hana Gali Ne matriarchal titleship of Clan Mother Louise Hearn. They are a third-year medical student at the university, interested in identity affirming care and decolonizing medicine. Dalton, could you please do us the honor?
Dr. Olivares, such nice words. Kunjo was a wadon sios, Gari Wayantagon wat wadon, Antke wani nega, Dogara nigawanage. Na hando gari wadekwa. One yande wari wadi hantone ganu waradunsara. Ji on wado anska anda waya ni yungwa ni gora. To. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the people to share a few short words of our giving of thanks, those words that come before all else. So now we will pull together the great matter and give gratitude so that our minds again can be one. Owa wanisarade yungwa gyataroro ne hyori huage ne aitawaga enonyo ji nion du hagye ji na dide watere neongwe sua. Dano jinio ji rok wat dakwa ne hunjage. Nene ayara kagwego skana ji de wana tanonyo. Ne ji niongwetage ge nunwe. Ya ide waya dayeri. Oni ji yungwa tagaride. Ya tahoda de gyungwa gya dungyang. Ne ganongwak dansara. Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue on, and that we have been gifted this duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. And so now we bring our minds together as we give these greetings to each other and all of creation. So now our minds are one. One ganto ni diongwe de skatne wa don guahnigora. Negadia toni wanizaroda. One eto wet dide wadade warnie. Giohunjade. Ne idewere. Skana. Nok uni yungwa tagari denio. Dayo tanoniat. Gadi ne gisego skana de wanatononia. De wakwego. Negadi one skatne antawaya. Skahni gura. Ne wahe one wadide wadadi no waradon ta etonio dohak neangwa nigora to. How special it is that us people can come together in our minds. Think of all of the different ways that we travel about this earth, and yet still we feel the same connected wellness. And also we see that our bodies are still working, they're still in good health. It's so pleasing that we still are content and peaceful in the way that we relate towards one another. And now we join in this place, Gatskuntarago, Rochester, New York, with one mind. And we hold each other up to greet and give thanks to each other and all people, here or not. And so our minds are one. Ne wahe one. Nuwa andawatrori etonu niori wage ye ne yetini stahaji honjate. Doske wahe eton nuwe dayungwa wihunda daje jisego skana ne dawana danunyon dayunkia wi haje. Ona hoda johakwa. Agwego na hoda waduni ne honjade ne deyesnye. Ne gadine yori honwana na hoda yeri wayantahkwa. Gadi ne yotanonia jisego yago nigurino. One gadi askanda the wat wet nuniji nie hawe. Ya teya gweniat. Dayago diste. Agwego agaonha. Ayont deni nigun rara. Anwado ongwe sua. Ne uni deyungwari waku. Ne uni ayonkweyon hage ne anseri wazeruni. We turn our minds to another important matter. We call her our mother, the earth, the land under our feet. It's from her where we are getting all of that peace. And still we are able to be content in our ways because she gives us everything we could ever need for our sustenance, to live a good life. All of whatever grows here on this earth, she looks after it. She is our first lesson in how to love, in how to heal. That's why it's a great thing, this duty of hers. So it's pleasing that still today we see that she has courage and a strong mind. We take all that she holds and bundle it up in one. All of creation, everything, we bundle it up together. She wouldn't be able to do it all by herself. It's a lot to look after, it's a lot to hold up. So it's possible for us people to also work together to help. It's possible for us to mend the matters. Jisego yungwahrung katye. Yunki sota gungahan raut diwana. Rondo. Zaze watsne zatwana. Tiga dunzaze werianto. Yechia don hunsatat. Ne aguego ganyatara ronyo. Ne aguego ne garonyo. Yechi hunsatat. Jinahodan ronda. Ne ganjonsoha. Gondirio. O jitonagun o jitnowatsu. Gua iga gundade watnio. Sau yera ne giga. One gadi aska andida watwet nuni na aguego nie hawe. Ne aguego gundi we yana taon. Ne yetinista hajio honjate. Ne gadi yungwatari daridatsu, ne wahe, deatino horado, da eto, niodohak, neongwahnigora, to. And still today we hear the voices of our grandparents of old, that their precious voices saying to us, you use your words again. Go and spread those good words all around. Listen to all of those rivers, all of the forests. Listen to what they are saying, the fish and the animals and the birds and the insects. Listen and watch. They show us freedom. All that she, our mother, holds tenderly right now, we're bundling it all up together. All that they have prepared for us on this earth, in this place, this is why we have our strength. So we hold it up and we give thanks. And so our minds can be one. Anji diok takwe, aunha deetino horadone, ji diodun honja dazawe, doske gua ne sungwanarunkwa, gua ego sungwanarunkwa. Da sungwa we haje segone nyok na nyodokta die. Yaji deheni gonrokta. Neji sego rahni gonrare donze de wadeni jini yon rahni gonroda. De wahni gonrio. Jo jung jakwe datsu. Negadine one anskan that waya nangwahni gonra. Giga ni diongwedege. Ne ayon gwahni gonro dahage. And so we will end it here with this thanks to the process of creation, this truth of how much we are loved by it, how we are reminded of this anytime we look into our world and see that still it gives us everything all this time, and it has yet to give up on us. Still, it waits for us to change our minds and uphold our duties to each other and all things. And that we should always try to keep a good mind for each of us. We hold this up and give thanks, and so our minds are one. Daito nya dakto na jaktueni ii dage wani nega ne wadide wadadi no horado ta eto ne niodohak ne anyodohage ne angwahnigona to. So that's all I am able to do to open this for us. What I have spoken, this short form of how we show thanks and gratitude to each other and all of our relatives. That now we can remember what it is like to be at peace and our minds one. Now, without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce two very special community members from our Ongwehoma community here in the Finger Lakes region, Jeanette, Jemison, and Angel.
Yahweh, leson no say. My name is Jeanette Jemison. I am Snipe Clan Mohawk, and I get my clan from my mother, who was Mohawk from the Akwesasne Reservation. My father was from the Six Nations Reservation in Ontario, Canada. And I grew up in Rochester, and I am currently living in Victor, New York, and I am the program director for the Friends of Ganondagan. And I have with me today.
안녕하세요, 그거이고 가왕와스니가서 Onondaga. My name is Angel Jimerson. I am of the Heron Clan, Onondaga Nation, and I am the production manager at the Iroquois Wakecorn Project.
Is there some way that we can change it so we can see them, or somebody? Today, what we thought we would do is to begin with just the formation of the Iroquois Confederacy, how it became what it is today. And that was from quite a while ago, they say over 1,000 years ago, there was a peacemaker that came here from the northern shores of Lake Ontario. And it was a time when the nations were all fighting. And, but there was a time prior to that they did live in peace. And we have a map right now that I'd like to show you. And this is a map that just indicates all the territories that belong to the Iroquois people. And all of, so if you can see that much of all, almost all of New York State was part of the Iroquois Confederacy. They joined together because of the peacemaker. And what happened was that the peacemaker came to from the shores, northern shores of Lake Ontario, and came and visited us, and first coming across with some, coming across hunters from the Mohawk Nation, and they were fleeing from their area because they said there was just too much turmoil and too many people that were fighting and against each other. And so he said, well, just go back to your village and, you know, tell them that I have a message that I want to share. And, but they also told him of an evil woman that was there, and that she really just kind of kept the fighting going. And what happened was that this woman was in a place where all of the tribes would go back and forth that were fighting from the east and to the west, and she would feed them and she would listen to their stories, and she liked to hear how gory and how many people were killed and everything that was just horrific. She really liked those, so she fed them to keep them coming. And so that's what the hunters had told the peacemaker. And at that time, he decided she was the first one that he wanted to see. So he went back and he found this woman. And after talking for days with her, she decided to accept that message of peace. And she said she would join him in helping to spread that message. And because she did that, our women we have a matrilineal society, and our women, there are clan mothers that have rights for women and hold the titles for our chiefs. And it's very important in our traditional communities. And so this has been going on, that our women have had rights for quite a while. And, you know, I mean, it's important to know that these women, because they held the titles for the chiefs, that means that the chiefs had to act in the best interest of the people that were their people. And so what happened was that the clan mothers would select the chiefs from the time that they were little, watching them play and watching what they were doing and how they acted within the community. And they would help to raise them, teach them everything that they would know to be a chief, because once you become a chief, it's for life. And you don't get any benefits, you don't get anything. You live among the people, and our chiefs live among the people, we call shoulder to shoulder. No one is living in a big White House. No one is living in a big mansion or anything. The chiefs are living among the people so that they can also see what's going on and feel and have the same kind of a experience within the communities. It was the clan mothers who chose that chief, but just as much as they could put them up there to be chiefs, they also had the rights and the ability to take them down. So if a chief wasn't acting in the best way for his community, thinking the best thoughts and trying to resolve things for the community, what would end up happening was that the chiefs the clan mothers would go over and visit that chief and said, you're not doing what you should be doing in the right way for the people. So, and if she had to, that was his clan mother. And then maybe the next time, if he continued on, she would go with a group of clan mothers, or maybe another or a couple. And then they would really warn him, saying, you cannot act like this anymore. You're not acting in the best interest of the people. And yet, finally, if there was a third time that they had to go, they would go to see the chief and they would call it dehorning, which means that on our gastoas for our men, the chief would have these antlers on there. So they called it dehorning, which would mean removing the horns, and he's no longer a chief. But not only that, that was something that was really very embarrassing. And it was almost like he had no face in the community anymore because he was not doing his job. So they did hold those rights. And I think that they always looked for the best interest of the community. And that was very important. Our women still do hold those rights. The peacemaker finally went to, after he went from and this woman's name was Jemison. He gave her that name, and she came with him, and they followed down the path, and they also gathered other people from different nations. The one that was the toughest was the Onondaga Nation, which is right there in the center. And it was really tough because there was a very, very evil man that was there. And he was like the chief there, and he had gone through some trauma, and he was just so affected by it. They say that he was just twisted and turned, and symbolically they said that he had snakes in his hair. He was so evil. But with Jemison and the peacemaker, they decided, in order to get the Onondaga people and others to join in and just follow the message of peace, they had to really get the toughest one down first. And that was Tadadaho. They gave him that title, which is really the chief of chiefs. And they gave him that title, but they got him to come from his cave. And what they did was special ceremonies, and what we symbolically call combing the snakes from his hair, and which made him into a real good human being, and he was able to lead again. And so therefore, that's at the time when all of those nations came together and they formed what you know as the Iroquois Confederacy. They were the 5 nations there that are on the map, and then the Tuscarora joined us later, so we became 6 nations, but originally we were 5. And what I just wanted to say is that with the map that was up there was a lot of territory that once belonged to the Iroquois people, or the Haudenosaunee people. And today, if you look at a map, we have these little dots on a map that show the territory that we have today, which are the reservations that we were forced to go to live on. And so we have a lot to deal with. We have had a lot to deal with, and our people have been really silent for a very long time. I grew up in Rochester because my mother and father met in Rochester, and they decided that's where they would work and that's where they would live and raise their children. And so I grew up like everyone else and learning how everyone else was. It wasn't like we had culture classes at my house, or when we went back to the reservations to visit family, we just visited. And so I was learning like everyone else. The difference was that I knew that I was Mohawk, and because I knew that there was something different, but I didn't quite know when I was little. But going to school, once we hit that grade where you start learning, the fourth grade, when you start learning about Native Americans and hit the history, I found that there were some pictures that were in the history, those textbooks, that showed the Native American people as savages. Usually they were up on horseback and, you know, a scalp in hand and a hatchet in the other. And, you know, of course, you know, there was always comments when we got to those pictures, and where, you know, especially the boys really liked those pictures. But I was very shy when I was young. And so I didn't want any attention drawn to me at all. And what ended up happening was that one day there was a teacher that said to me, they said to the class, "Do you know that we have a real Indian in this class?" And everyone was looking at each other going, what? And I ended up, I was just shaking because I thought, please let there be someone else who's Indian in this class, not me. And then she pointed back at me and she said, "Jeanette Miller, will you please stand up?" And I stood up, but my legs were just shaking and I was just so nervous. And so that was my first time that it was kind of like that, that I was outed, you know, that I was a Native American. And nobody really wanted to be a Native American at that time. That was when there was, you know, the John Wayne movies were on television. You know, I wanted to be a cowboy. I didn't, when we played cowboys and Indians, I wanted to be a cowboy. You know, nobody wanted to be the Indians. You know, that was kind of the last thing. And so we, you know, so those were the kind of things that we grew up with. As I got older, things changed, you know, where it became, you know, now it was very kind of that we were mystic and magical, you know, that was during the hippie times, you know, like, oh, so cool. Everybody's wearing fringe jackets, you know, and it's so cool to be, you know, Native American then, you know, but nobody still understood us. And so things had gone on, and, you know, and as I grew up, I learned, I guess the times that I learned the most was occasionally talking to my mother. But I remember one time my mother said to me that I was lucky. And I said, "I'm lucky?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Because you're like light skinned, and I had very light hair." And she said, "And you have light hair." And but I thought that because my sisters were darker than I was, and they had long straight hair and dark, really dark hair, that I was adopted. And my mother said, "No, you're not adopted, you're just lucky. And because you're going to be able to go through those, just slide through life." And I never knew what that meant until I got older, what she was trying to tell me, that people wouldn't see me as an Indian, you know. And she wanted us to be able to just be comfortable here, you know, living here among everyone else. And even our, you know, our relatives, you know, if you didn't grow up on the reservation, you know, they just kind of thought, oh, you know, you're kind of, you know, you're more white than, you know, Indian. In some cases, I was more, you know, I had more native blood than they did, you know, but I think that what's happened to me is that growing up, and I finally got to Ganondagan, and Ganondagan has taught me a lot. I'm program director for the Friends of Ganondagan, so I was able to create programs that actually I could learn from. So I just kind of thought, if I want to learn this, there must be other people that would want to learn. But I also had to always think that we are educating two different groups those our own people, and then also the other general public too. So when we can't assume just because, and people do assume this, just because we're Native Americans, we know about the history. I was never good in history. In fact, I hate history. But what I love is my culture. And so I think that with the history part, I know some of that. Dates, not so much. But I know our culture. I know what I need to know now. And so with the educational programs, we also have included a program like the Iroquois White Corn Project, and among many others. I want to say that we are so busy with programs that sometimes it's like, my husband will just say, when are you going to take a break? And I always feel like, oh my God, I can't pass up a good program, so we just go on and on. But the one program that I feel like has been really, really good for Ganondagan is the Iroquois White Corn Project. And Angel actually is the Iroquois White Corn Project manager and has been with us on and off. And I'll let Angel take over at this point.
Yeah, so I'm the production manager there. I have been there on and off for the past 10 years. So in 2011, I got into a little trouble in school, and I didn't have to show up for a period of time. So to kind of give me something to do, I helped my brother's father to like paint the farmhouse and get the facility ready for the White Corn Project to move in. So we did the remodeling for it. In 2012, the project finally moved in, and I had turned 14, so I started working there. That was my first job, and I did a lot of work there when I was younger, and I got to experience and meet so many different people and exchange and listen to so many stories, and but I was there from the age 14 to, I want to say, 19. And when I was 19, I had to take a 2-year break because I had been there for so long, but I didn't really appreciate the work I was doing. I wasn't understanding why I was doing the work that I was doing. So a little information about the White Corn Project is the Iroquois white corn has a hard hull on it, and it needs to be processed before the human body can digest it, before your teeth can chew it. And the process takes a long period of time, and it's pretty labor intensive. So traditionally what was used was a hardwood ash, but today we use a culinary lime in our facility, at least. And there's a lot to think about with the process. So when using a culinary lime, it's such a harsh chemical. We have to rinse it out. We have to test the pH level, make sure that it's safe enough to put on the shelf. And then we have to go through a lot of sorting. We have to go through the rinsing process takes a lot of muscle, and then it has to go into the dehydrator for 20 hours at 160 degrees. So to do a whole batch after it's sorted, to actually process it and get it ready to be packaged, it takes a good 24 to 25 hours to do that. And that's not including the sorting, that's not including the packaging. And then there's just so many things along the way. So before we even get to be able to sort it after it's harvested, it needs to be braided. It needs to be husked, and then the husks need to be braided so that they can hang. And we hang them up in a corn crib, and it has to dry for about 5 months. So even then, we have to wait months after it's harvested before we can start processing it, before we can start even incorporating it into our food. So doing all this work at such a young age, like I was learning a lot, but I wasn't understanding what I was learning. So I took a 2-year break. On that 2-year break, I discovered minimalism. I discovered sustainability. I was trying to become more eco-friendly. And I was trying to connect back to my culture, because growing up, I grew up at Ganondagan. My brother and I were raised there from when we were younger. I moved in when I was 5 months old, and I grew up learning the history, but because I grew up off territory, I did not learn the ceremonies. I did not learn the language. I did not learn our songs. On the occasion, I would hear all this stuff, but I didn't know it myself. So I went on this journey to reconnect to the culture. And that was really difficult. I come from a reservation that is pretty close-minded and can be harsh. So I often was shamed for my ignorance, for not knowing stuff that wasn't taught to me. And I was too embarrassed to ask questions. And I decided to try to figure out how to learn things on my own. And that's when I discovered, connecting with the earth, because I one day just had a thought of, where do all of our traditions and everything come from? I wanted to know what the root of that was, because if I could go back, I would. And I realized all of our stories and all of our songs and all of our ceremonies are based on the natural world. So that's why I decided to go back to the natural world and think about those stories I've already heard, and figure out what the natural world can offer me. And that's when I started learning about gratitude, and slowing down my life to be able to think through things and process things, learning to be mindful of everything around me. And coming back to the White Corn Project, I saw these little things that I wanted to change. And for example, one of those things was, I always talk about the sorting process. Before I came back, for many years, the sorting process was, here's good corn and here's a pile of bad corn. And that just didn't sit right with me. So, and I remember even before that, the first couple of years the project came back, it was the good corn and it was garbage. The corn was actually thrown into the garbage, put into the dumpster and taken to the landfill. And so, I really tried working on the compost. The composting is still chaotic and not working out too well, but it's still breaking down. It's still going back to the earth, which is what's important to me. And but I changed the mindset of the sorting process to think of it not as good or bad, but think about what is its purpose. So now when we sort, we have a pile of corn that's sorted for hulled. We have a pile of corn that's sorted for the flour, because it has these little imperfections, these little flaws that maybe people most likely aren't going to eat if it's on their dish, but if it's ground up in the flour, you can't see those things. And then we have the pile that's going to compost because it has mold, or it's something that we just can't put on the shelf. It still has its purpose to go back to the earth. It could become fertilizer, or it can just go back home. And that after making that change, I started to realize that it shifted my mindset of how I thought of people and how I thought of myself. And we naturally sort people. Today, of course, like going through social media, we're very judgmental of the people we see posting, and it is very easy to sort people. So changing the mindset like that, I started thinking about other people differently. I started seeing them differently, rather than seeing a trait that they have that I before would have thought, oh, I want to stay away from them. I stopped thinking things like that. If I saw something concerning, I started wondering, are they okay? I started wondering if they need anything, rather than just jumping in and judging them. And when it came to myself, realizing, seeing these kernels that didn't look like the perfect white kernels, but thinking of them still having a purpose, still having a place to go, still having a home, and still being beautiful, and they're not useless, they're not garbage, they're not bad, helped me think that about myself, because I have developmental PTSD from childhood, and I have dealt with symptoms most of my life. And especially through high school, I did not feel great about myself. I really loathed myself, and there was a lot of self-hatred. There was a lot of self-harm. And but thinking this way about the corn, I realized, because I'm different, because I look different, I act different, I feel differently, I think differently, it doesn't mean that I'm useless. It doesn't mean that I'm garbage. It doesn't mean that I'm bad, like I used to think. It just means maybe I'm not in the right pile that I'm supposed to be in. And so it's been a lot of finding my own place where I can feel that comfort and feel good about being myself. So that was a big thing coming back to the White Corn Project, is changing these little things, and the way we changing the language, changing the things that we say. So instead of saying I hate this, it's more of, well, I feel a certain way about this, and I would like to know why. Maybe dive into it and then figure out why and work on that. So like I never liked sorting. Sorting was always my least favorite thing to do. And coming back, I wondered why, and it was because it allowed me to sit with myself, sit with my thoughts, and sit with my emotions, and I did not like that. So realizing that, I worked on it, and now I'm able to sit down and sort, and now I'm able to be home and sit with myself, sit with my thoughts and my emotions, and process them properly instead of just holding them in. So yeah, that's my story.
Angel has come a long way, and I think that the White Corn Project, as I said, it has been, I don't know how many years 2011 you said?
2012.
Wow.
So it's been almost 10 years.
So it's been a while, and we've learned a lot from it, but we've learned more from Angel than ever, than anything else. And so even that we have even helped some other people who have come to us with some mental health issues, and have felt comfort there, and have been then able to go out, people who've been reclusive and not wanting to socialize, and and because the White Corn Project is a house, it doesn't look like a building that you have to go into to work. So we were able to get people, at least a couple of people, to come through that door and then stay and grow. And actually, today, one that was a recluse before now comes to our events and visits with us and hangs out, and and it's just been good. So I think that I just wanted Angel to talk about his story, to let you know about how we deal with some mental health issues, and you know, on a everyday basis, Angel is dealing with that. And I think even Angel brought into Ganondagan, to the White Corn Project, and where we work out of the farmhouse, the minimalism. So it's like, you know, just clearing everything out helped Angel to also clear his mind. And it was just beautiful watching, you know, the process. So anyways, I don't know what time.
12:47.
So, you know, I think at this point, what I wanted to do is to show the Earth Altars video, and then I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk briefly about that, but then also I'd like to see if there's any questions for us. One of the altars that was done by my husband, Peter Jemison, and one of the staff members. Next. And it has, and he decided to do a turtle with these seeds on it. And it was, and the one on the left is when he first finished it. They worked on it, and the one on the right with the colored beautiful stones. And then there was a there was a really heavy downpour of rain. And what he experienced with that, like, he came up and he was disappointed that down, you know, his altar had changed, you know, his earth altar, his turtle had changed, and it had just, you know, the head came off, and he had to go back and put it back on. And, you know, the animals had taken all the seeds and had been eating at it. And people were also even taking the stones. And my feeling was, isn't that wonderful? You know, that it's just changed, and it's still an altar. And that's what the whole Earth Altars was about, that we make things from the earth and they go back to the earth, but they have these beautiful changes in between. And for him, the birds and the animals enjoyed his. So I thought that was beautiful. Next. This one was, the artist was Michael Jones, and he did this pot. Next. And it had 2 logs that were on either side of it, and what it was for meditation, and for people just to sit there and meditate, just to sit and relax. But the pot had all these healing words all around it. Next. This one is your mother's.
Yeah.
Yes, this one is Angel's mom's. And you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so this is actually a heron's nest. So she, because my mother is Heron Clan, this piece was really about, you know, it's the empty nest. My brother and I are now grown up. My brother has left our house and is on his own completely. I have my own car, and I work, I go to school, I have my own life. And it's her having that empty nest, and you know, keeping a place for us to be. So she made it out of, the bottom is corn cobs, which she took from the White Corn Project that we gave her. And my piece has some corn in it too. So our pieces are kind of connected in a few different ways. So, and then she has the sticks on top. She has some rose petals and flowers on top. So her favorite part of this piece was that there were animals coming and, you know, grabbing the sticks and grabbing the cobs and grabbing the flowers. And she was going out every few days to check it. And every single time that she went to see it, it changed. And that's what she loved about it. She used all stuff other than the corn cobs, all the other stuff she found in the woods. The rose petals are from a rose bush outside of outside the White Corn Project. And
You should show yours next.
yeah, I don't know which one's next.
Next.
Yeah.
Yours.
So this one's mine. So I have the corn husks that are surrounding the entire altar. So those are also there to help. I have clematis growing on each end, and they're kind of a viney flower. So I put the husks there so that they can grow around the husks and surround the entire altar, because the clematis represents mental beauty. So I have a bunch of sticks at the bottom of the flowers and like a lot of stuff that would be taken from the nest, my mom's nest, because she has done so much in her life, and she's grown so much, and has passed on so much knowledge to me. And that's what that's representing, is the pieces that I've taken with me from that nest, because I don't know where I'd be without them. So
I think that at this point, you probably have an idea, and we can take the Earth Altars PowerPoint down. And I think that you have an idea of what the Earth Altars were about, and coming off of COVID, our COVID year, and for me to still do programming, I was having a difficult time, but I happened to be going through my husband's art stuff, and I came up with this beautiful catalog that just said Earth Altars. It was done by one artist who had taken these photos of different places she had built these little earth altars throughout the woods. And I just loved that. So I wanted for us, our first program, to be Earth Altars, and to have people walk in the woods and just happen to come across these. No locations given or anything, but if you happen to come across one, you would stop and pause and meditate and just think maybe of the past, what the COVID year, that experience was like, and also of the future for hope. And then I also decided not just to have them at Ganondagan, but some of the maybe some people in Rochester would help us, and also there would be also individuals that might join us. So we put it out on social media in hopes that people would join us and make these earth altars, and also to have these smaller organizations. We decided not to go with bigger organizations because they always get a lot of publicity and connections and collaborations, but the smaller organizations, not so much. So we reached out to them and to try to build community. And there were several different organizations. Creative Wellness was one, and 21st Century Art was another. Flower City Arts was another, and there's several others that joined us. And it was probably at this point one of the best projects that we did all year. And it was one of my favorites because it still has a lasting, and it just still keeps going and going. And we have built these relationships that I had told people we weren't going to just leave them. It wasn't going to be a project and see you later, thanks for helping, or getting involved. So, and we've had these connections, and now we're in these wonderful community relationships. So it served its purpose. At this point, I'd like to see if there's anyone that has any questions. What time? It
We
looks
have
like
about 5 minutes, Jeanette, and there's a couple of questions here. First of all, thank you so much to the three of you for this presentation. It's been inspiring. People have been writing about it in the chat, in the Q&A, and really, really just wonderful. So thank you so much for having come to share all your stories with us today. They've been powerful and just really so heartwarming to get to know you all a little bit better. There was a question from Deborah King. Let me see if I can find it. Deborah, some of these questions Dalton answered, but I'm not sure if other people got to see them or hear them, but one of them was, she says, thanks so much for sharing the story. She was fascinated by the role of women in naming and dehorning chiefs and can't help but think how much better off America would be now if we had a similar system of authority and could comb snakes from hairs of our leaders. Did your people ever have trouble upholding this matriarchal authority?
I think that has gone on, for a long time. And if we had more time, I would actually tell you this story about Hillary Clinton coming to visit Ganondagan at the time of Monica Lewinsky. But that meeting with our clan mothers, it was hilarious, actually, and very, I don't know, awakening for me too. But I think for her, a lot, and kind of wishing that this was still going on. And, at that point, maybe she could have, I was saying, oh, throw his stuff off the balcony of the White House, stuff. But, I think she listened to our clan mothers, and it was really wonderful to just see that kind of transpire. But it's still, it still does go on, and but seems like it's a longer, harder process because it's hard to keep those traditions going, and make them exact. Everybody's doubting, everybody's saying, wait a minute, are we supposed to do that? Or is this supposed to be done? And who's going to do it? And everybody wants kind of hands off, and, we've experienced that too, because of influence from the outside. And, and also a lot of people, a lot of our people are living off the reservations now, like myself, Angel, Dalton, that we're here and we're surviving, but we also still play a role within our community. And we don't think that just Victor is our community or just Rochester is our community. It is, but we also think bigger, that across New York State, that all of those are our communities, that we all belong to the Haudenosaunee community also. So
Thank you for that, Jeanette. And I guess we just have 1 minute. I guess I hope that some people feel inspired about also finding their peace and realization and wellness in spirituality and maybe creating some earth altars. The Ganondagan website has beautiful examples of the earth altar, as well as a very brief video of the story that Jeanette was telling us today. I invite everybody to go on site and to experience the site, and also to have a visit out there. I know last weekend was the last weekend of the Longhouse, but are you guys still open the rest of the fall?
We are. If you go on our website and upcoming events, it will give a list of the events that we have. We actually have one coming up this Saturday at 2:00. It's called the Doctrine of Discovery. So, and so I think that, we're trying to put educational programs out there, and make them go a little bit deeper for those who want to go a little deeper with us. Some people are afraid to do that and, don't want to, but I always say, it's not going to be pretty. Some, we do those pretty programs too, but some of them we need to get to, the hearts, and also get through the heads of some people, even our own, so it's an educational experience. So, and it's all on different levels, and we welcome everyone. And we hope that people will go to our website and check out our events. We have stuff going on all the time.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this really wonderful presentation. And Jeanette and Angel and Dalton, if you guys stay behind, I'd like to speak with you.
Okay.